All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, Playbook to Success, and we have a special guest here with us. We always try to bring you guys somebody who's popular in the sports world, good people, have good character, and can give you their experience as they've seen sports and how sports has helped them develop to who they are. The purpose of this is, based on some principles that I've established in life. And the first is leadership, something that's important. Acceptance, buy-in, that's for all the people who aren't stars, understanding that there's roles in life. Execution is worship. If you can execute, then there's a life out there for you. And these are some of the principles I live by and we try to promote during this webinar. All right, so let's get into it. I'm excited about this one. When you think of yourself as an athlete, first, where did you fall in love with basketball?
First of all, I believe my father, who was an excellent athlete, kind of didn't push me or force me. He just introduced me to a lot of different sports. So when I was growing up, I played football, basketball, baseball, t-ball, whatever I can get my hands on. I was out there and being active, and that was probably at 4 or 5 at the local YMCA.
So 4 or 5, it's fun times. It's like, you double dribbling, you tripping over the ball. It's cool. It's fun. When did it start? Since you're playing multiple sports, when did you hone in and say basketball could be that sport for me?
It started with a lot of frustration because I remember games when my dad was coaching our team, me being on the defensive end when our team was on the offensive end, and then when our team was shooting buckets, I was trying to play defense on them. Going through that little bit of humiliation with my teammates and, the crowd kind of laughing at me, probably in like the 6th grade, I decided, I'm going to make this thing work for me. Growing up in the area of Charlotte that I did grow up in, a lot of kids knew that to get to college, we had to get scholarships. And so I made it a mindset and a goal of mine to be the best that I could be. I was never the most athletic kid. I was smart, but I wasn't the smartest cat. I did have a basketball IQ. And so basketball became fun for me. In high school, I played both football and basketball. But then I kind of chickened out and said, you know what? I like the weather in the gym better. So I stuck to the gym a little bit more. So when that happened in high school, I said to myself, let's try to make a career and a lifestyle of this particular sport.
So a lot of athletes I work with are high school, middle schoolers. What were some of the principles or some of the, foundational tools that you learned? Basketball, I always tell people, basketball is so much like life. It literally mirrors life. But what were some of the things that you learned at a young age that started to set you out from others?
Okay, so as when I was 11 years old, there were 2 AAU teams here in Charlotte, just 2. Now it's 2 in the neighborhood here, neighborhood next door. So now, when I was growing up, my AAU coach at 11 gave us a playbook, and it became serious then. And so he worked on the fundamental crafts of what basketball was about. Not crossing over, not going behind your back. He was just talking about just dribbling. One little crossover here, change of direction. At 11 years old, when now the game is kind of fantasy, it's a fantasy out there when you see people cross over, everybody running on the court. That's not what we were growing up doing. We just needed to get a stop. We needed to get a bucket. So the basics of basketball to me are like the pride and joys. I love good basketball. Few passes, backdoor, dunk. Few passes, good shot, and good screens. Those are the things that excite me. But growing up, having that foundational mindset really took me to another level. I didn't care if I got dunked on. If I took that charge, it's our ball. So a lot of kids nowadays, I'm having to fight back and forth with them as a coach and as a father. My own son, if he get crossed over, he'll go into a shell. I'm like, listen, boy, if you don't get to that next play and forget about what just happened, don't let it happen again. That's the mindset that'll get you and push you to the next level.
You know, you said something really important there, and I loved it. If you don't get your mind to the next play, the game usually ends right there for you. Like it's difficult. But talk me through that. You're in the Charlotte area. There's crazy amounts of basketball players. Was it really hard for you to kind of make your name, or was those foundational tools that you got leading up to that point just helped you press through and figure your own way through that high school scene?
In middle school, I was on a successful middle school team, but I wasn't the star. Going into high school, I have the mindset, oh, I'm gonna make varsity. I'm gonna do some good things in high school. Well, two of my teammates made varsity. I made JV, and I was pretty upset about it. But me playing JV that year kind of propelled me to the level, and it kind of built in me the animosity that I needed to get out every day, go shoot. My mom would often wake me up. How many shots you get this morning? How many times you dribble around the neighborhood? What did you do this morning to make yourself better? That kid is doing that over there. That's why he's getting recruited. What are you getting? So she kind of challenged me. And so my 10th grade year, back then, 10th grade was your first year in high school, I didn't make varsity. So I made JV. I did really well. And the next 2 years, when I did get to varsity, I was able to get player of the year in the whole city. So I went from JV to player of the year status in 1 year because I built up a lot of animosity on that JV bench. I knew I could play better than some of our varsity players, but I just didn't get the opportunity. And so with my mom and my dad pushing me, I was out there on Saturday mornings dribbling around the neighborhood with my left hand, shooting 300 shots in the morning, shooting another couple in the afternoon, and building something up. It didn't take off for me until I saw my name in the paper, like, holy cow, they're writing about me. And so that's when it really hit me my junior year. I was like, man, I could really do some things. College coaches writing, this is pretty cool. I want to see how far I can go.
Talk me through that though. It's a fine line between a parent. We're both parents. Now it's a very fine line between pushing your kid and giving them a nudge in the right direction. How did that work for you? You know, I know you as a man now, but talk to me as a young man, like going through that stage, being pushed, because I think this generation is very sensitive to being pushed.
Oh my
They
gosh.
do not like anything that's uncomfortable. How did you handle that? Because, you know, dribbling around the park or dribbling, you know, asking your kid to go outside and dribble on the court, on the driveway is like murder. How did that help you, and how creative were your parents as far as pushing that button to get you to the next level?
It was a challenge, but at the same time, like I said, in the AAU game, I was around a lot of good caliber athletes. At the same time, those same athletes were getting All American every time we went to nationals. I didn't. I got some defensive accolades, and I was more of a defensive kind of guru back then. But at the same time, my mom was like, "Don't you want to be known as a diverse player?" So my challenge to her was, listen, I don't want you to pay for school. I want to get my own path through school with my grades, because I had pretty good grades in high school. And I want you to be someone that you could look at in the mirror and say, yo, I don't want you watching them. I want them watching you. So get away from the TV, go outside, get your shots up, make your shots. Don't just shoot to shoot, shoot to make it, and get better each day, every day. And so it wasn't hard for me, but now I see it as a father. I'm like, Tight, you got to go outside and shoot. You got to go outside and dribble. You got to go outside and do your push-ups in your room. Push-ups, sit-ups every day. Try to make yourself better. You know, what we get now, we get the, oh, man, that. And so it's frustrating because, of course, you want to get your child by the hand and shake him a little bit, like, wake up. But at the same time, you don't want him to be turned off by how hard you push him. So what I'm trying to do is love him real good. I'm going to send him to the coach and have him be disappointed a little bit. But then when he comes back to me, then I'm going to drill it. I'm going to try to drill it in. So I see what you're saying, because I get a lot of fathers that come up to me as I train their kids, like, he don't want to listen to me no more. Hopefully he'll listen to you. And I said, listen, I'm going through the same thing with mine. And so we got to nudge these kids in the right fashion. But at the same time, don't let them get off easily, because life, like you said, is not going to be easy. You don't show up one day, you're going to get fired. You don't make a shot one day, they're going to bring in the next cat. So you got to understand, if you do get the opportunity to make this a lifelong dream and a living, listen, you one step away from getting cut and sitting home and your check transferring to somebody else.
I love it, man, because it's so hard. It's difficult to tell somebody something they've not experienced. It's so hard. Like, you don't understand what it's like to be in a gym, and you know your job's on the line if you don't win. You know what I mean? Or you're a teacher, and there's maybe some students, and if they don't pass this test, you don't get the job again. It's difficult to explain that to the younger generation, and let me just tell you, it's the same challenge. We have the same ones as well. But I want to get back into it. Now you get to high school, you got Player of the Year multiple times. Now talk to me about this recruiting process, because everybody's process is different. Some people go big, some people go small, some people don't get seen. They have to walk on. Talk me through it. How do you get to Penn State, and why did you choose Penn State? Because, I mean, if you're the Player of the Year, I'm pretty sure maybe some schools in your backyard are looking at you.
So I honestly didn't get to Penn State from Charlotte. So from Charlotte, I had a lot of local schools, smaller D1 schools give me offers. And actually, I was thinking about taking a couple of them. But my mom, a huge advocate of education, she was like, "You too young." I was 16 when I graduated from high school. And so I just turned 17 in the summer. And she was like, "You too young, not mature enough. I want you to go to private school first and kind of increase some of your skill sets in the classroom." And I was like, "Mom, I'm good. I can go to UNCC or I can go to Davidson. I could play there right away. I'm good." So I accepted a scholarship to UNCC, and she was like, "No, you didn't. I ain't signed off on nothing." And so at the end of my senior year, when everybody went to the beach, she sent me to summer school in Massachusetts at a prep school. And I was like, "Mom, this sucks. Like, you don't know how much this sucks, because all my friends laying on the beach." And so going to this private school really opened my eyes to a lot of different things, because in high school here, I had a 3.8 GPA, but I probably read 3 books in my 3 years of high school. And that's tough to believe, but it's true. My first summer up there, this lady set 6 novels on the desk and said, "This is what you're going to be reading this summer in the 5-week period." I'm like, "You got to be out your freaking mind if you think I'm about to read 5 novels." And so, that really, it like took a hammer to my head, because I was like, "Oh, I'm in a different world. This college thing is something different. And this is just a prep school." So from this prep school, to make a long story short, I was able to gain some insight on what college looked like academically. But it also allowed me to get in the gym pretty much 24 hours when I wasn't in the classroom. I had the key to the lights, to the gym, to the back door. And so every night before curfew, I was in there shooting, dribbling, dunking. And so it made me into a complete player, because I had access to a gymnasium that was mine. And so I took a team, I think the year before, they went like 11 and 6, 7. And we were 21-3, best record in the school. And we were playing against St. Thomas More, MCI, and all those huge prep schools up there. And I really made a name for myself. Bobby Knight was coming to the games. Tubby Smith was coming to the game. Somebody came to the cafeteria and said, "John Calipari in the cafeteria looking for Titus." And I'm like, "Get the heck out of here." But it was a coach from Davidson, Bob McKillop. But that was cool then too. But at the same time, it really helped get me on the map, because from there, I took a visit to Michigan State, took a visit to Penn State. I had Big East schools recruit me because I averaged 30 points a game. And so getting in the gym, putting in that hard work really paid off, and I kind of blossomed from them. So taking a visit to State College it was somewhere I had never been. I think they took me to a football game, a couple of parties, and for a high school kid from the South, and you seeing all these women and all this stuff going on, you're like, "I want to go to school here." And so with the great education that I got and knew that I would get, it was a no-brainer for me.
You can't breeze by that. Have to be honest. You're young. It's different. I went to a private school as well. It's a different look when you're in a private school institution than when you get to a university where there's thousands of people.
Yeah.
How does that affect your mindset? Because this is a form of freedom. Even private school, I mean, it has restrictions. But now, when you're in this realm, now you're free and you get to see it. How much does the structure of home affect your decision to go to Penn State versus some other schools, which I'm pretty sure, as good as you were, probably offered you a lot of things on the side, behind, that could have been profitable or even interesting to you?
So, choosing Penn State was very critical to me. At the same time, Davidson offered me UNCC, so they're real close to my high schools. And so I thought about coming home and playing in front of the home crowd. I went to that private school up north where we had to get permission to bring people into our room. So that was a huge kind of balancing act as well. But, for me, I was also a football player up there. We won a state championship. But I took a visit to Notre Dame, too, in football. And in football, Notre Dame's a nice private school where you had to sign people in. And I was like, man, are y'all serious? You got to sign these people in? So, with Penn State being what it was, with 50,000 students just on that campus and another 100 off the campus, and I've been talking about people schedule their classes around parties. Now, knowing that I'm coming to get an academic scholarship with athletics in mind, I knew that there was also another life. And so having that freedom played a huge role in how my lifestyle would be in a college setting. Because I've always preached as a teacher, college is going to be the best time of your life. And so once you get there, slow it down and embrace it, because when you leave, you're going to be like, dang, I want another couple years. I want to sit down a little bit. And I used to pick at all the old heads that used to still be in the club at like 28, 29. But I see what they're doing. Because it's just such a great atmosphere. And for me, Penn State was that atmosphere where I got a great education. I played high caliber ball. I traveled the world. We went to Italy my freshman year. We went all over the United States in tournaments. Made it to the NCAA my fourth year, and we just did some spectacular things.
Talk to me about it, though. You're doing all these things. You're getting to travel. You're getting to see the world. You're going all around. What's going through your mind? North Carolina game. Probably one of the biggest games. And if I'm honest with you, I wasn't a Christian. I definitely made some money off of you guys that night. I didn't even know you. And I was like, I got $20 on Penn State. They was like, you crazy? Joe Forte? They got all these dudes, you crazy? I said, there's something about Penn State is they going to beat them. It's always one team that sleeps. Talk me through that game. Talk to me about how, in the moment, in probably one of the biggest moments leading up to a professional career, what were you thinking going through that game? Because I'm looking at the deep shots you're taking, driving to the lane. You got Joe Forte, who's projected to go in the first round right there. Everything that you know, because you're a hometown boy. Was there any animosity? Was there any like, oh, you didn't pick me up? Or I'm going to show y'all what y'all missed? What was going through your mind?
So when we went to the selection show, and never experiencing that until my fourth year there was tough. But at the same time, I've gone to 2 Final Fours in the NIT. But going to the tournament, when that bracket came up, they tell you always to look at the game in front of you. When that North Carolina came up and then that Providence came up, I was like, I want that second game. And so in my mind, praying, I was like, we're going to make it to that second game. And then when we make it to the second game, we're going to prove a lot of people wrong. And so after we beat Providence, which wasn't an easy game, they were a Big East team, my brother called and said, hey, Titus, Joseph Forte put something in the paper down here. I think you should hear it. I was like, what'd he say? He was like, man, everybody want to go to Carolina, but everybody ain't good enough. So You know, he probably one of them dudes. And I'm like, got it. I appreciate that. So I took that mindset and I was like, you know what? I told my coach, I was like, I don't care who you put on anybody else, but I want to check him. Wherever he go, I want to be there. Wherever he do, I want to be there to shut that down. And so my mindset was like, listen, half of my high school graduated and went to Carolina. So I know people going to be watching this game. I know people going to be cheering for me, but wanting the other team to win. So I'm going to prove everybody wrong, and I'm going to go out here and do the best that I can. But people don't know that the night before, my mom had an ulcer in her stomach and was shipped to the hospital. And so the night before the game, I'm in the hospital, and I'm with her, supporting her, and she was okay. She was like, baby, just go home, get some rest for the game. I'm like, nah, I'm good here. I'll get there in the morning. We're going to do what we're going to do. But life for me has always been a roller coaster because my dad died at the end of my freshman year. So I dealt with that adversity, dealing with some other things. And then this thing in the tournament, I'm like, dude, only the Lord going to bring me through this. So being that type of student athlete, man, I knew it was destined. I knew we was going to win that game before, but I had to show people what we were about.
Talk to me though. Even though you have spiritual faith, you have a belief in yourself. Is there an element of fear that pushes you as well? I just asked because here's the thing. I talked to a student earlier and I was just like talking to him about sometimes the dream has to scare you. Sometimes it has to be a little bit scary, like, but what if we don't? Was there any element of fear at all in you going into this game?
So you always know that the ball is always going to bounce different ways for different people at certain times. And so my coach as a professional, he was like, if you don't have those butterflies in your stomach before the game, then you're not ready to play. And so that whole night while I was with my mom, while I was on the bus, the butterflies just floating in and out of my body. And so, you know, you going into it, like you said, this dude's supposed to be top. He's supposed to be a lottery pick. Brendan Haywood, they listed him at 7 foot, but he looked 6'7", 10. He was huge. And so I think the first two balls he dunked harder than I don't know what. And then we got Julius Peppers down there and doing some ridiculous things. I remember on the court, one of my teammates came off the screen and he came to the bench crying. I was like, are you crying? We in the guy, you crying? And he was like, man, ain't nobody called that screen. I'm like, boy, if you don't toughen up and get you better run through it next time. And he was like, you run through it. I was like, I ain't running nowhere near that. But the thing about it, there's always that element of caution. But at the same time, that's where you get putting in the work. If you put in the work, you get your drills in, you make practice harder than the games, then when that game comes up, it's like being in practice and you can flow with it.
It's interesting you say that because I remember the game and I remember I was like, why do they keep fronting Brendan Hayward? Why do they keep fronting him? I was like, why do they keep fronting him? He getting dunked after dunk. And then I saw, I don't know who the dude was. I'll never forget. And at number 3. And I went back to make sure I wasn't. And he stripped him at every pivotal point. And each time he stripped him, Brendan Hayward would stand there like a lottery, like I'm a brat. And you would go down and capitalize on it. Talk to me about that. In your college career, the mistakes, having to go to NIT, getting into that point, did it help you develop that grit in that game and going forward in your career? Was that like one of those moments where it was like, we're going to create this because we've worked that hard for it? And you know, after the game is over, then where's your mind going into the next game?
So, I mean, if you look at our team and you look at the basketball that we have today, we didn't have any high-caliber 5-star athletes. You know, we had a white kid from Illinois that couldn't jump over two encyclopedias. We had a big guy that was really tough, that was a creator for us and a bully for us. But that was it. Me, Joe Crispin, John Crispin, we were 3-star athletes who could basically shoot and, you know, defend a little bit. And so we didn't have those high flyers, but we had a purpose. And so we went through the season. I think that year we beat Kentucky, we beat Michigan State, we beat Illinois. All of these teams were ranked in the top 10. And so going through all of that, but we lost a lot of close games to Iowa and Indiana and Wisconsin. And so it kind of went back and forth. But playing in the Big Ten, we always say Big Ten make men. It did make us men because, you know, in the tournament, in the Big Ten tournament, we beat Michigan State, and nobody thought we could do that. And I'm seeing Jason Richardson's shoe go by my head like, oh, dang, I'm in a poster. But at the same time, get the ball out, let's go down and score this thing and play defense the next time. So, you know, the grit came from our experiences through the NIT, in the first round, in this game. And so I know I preach to my kids, every round is like a promotion in work and in school. If you get promoted, you get more potential later down the road. And so you got to keep working to promote yourself. Because I know I didn't get a look to go to the league, probably because I got exited one round before a lot of the kids that did go to the league got drafted in. And I'm like, man, all I had to do was one. But that's not the thing. My life changed because I went overseas and I did some special stuff over there. But to take back something, listen, every game is pivotal for your career, for your personality, for your confidence. And that's why it's so important to be prepared, to have knowledge about what you want to do and accomplish in that game, and to go out and bring your team together to accomplish that goal.
So talk me through it. Now you get through that, you know, you don't get looks from the league. But you do go overseas. Talk me through that. Like, what's it like? What's different for you? Because it's a different atmosphere. It's no longer, you know, there's a code, a sportsmanship code. There's no police who's going to protect you in some of these gyms. What's it like playing for you? What's the experience? And how do you grow from it, especially your first year? Talk me through that.
So I get to Italy. My first year, I was in Verona, which is in northern Italy. And so I'm the only American for, I believe it was 4 weeks. And for that 4 weeks, I had one teammate that spoke fluent English. And then my coach spoke fluent English. My head coach didn't speak any English. So I'm in practice kind of listening to the translations. I go back to the hotel every night. My TV only gets 2 channels. Was MTV and CNN. And so I'm sitting there like I'm depressed. I love basketball practice, but I'm depressed once I leave the gym. And so I call my mom. I'm like, Mom, I don't know if I'm doing this. Because that first year, I got an $80,000 contract. So I'm like, dang, I'm making 8 G's a month. And so I'm excited about that aspect. But at the same time, I'm going home to nothing. 4 walls, a bag, and nobody to talk to. And so I call my mom, like, Ma, I don't think I could do this. This is not what I expected, not what I anticipated. She was like, okay, baby, come on home. You can get a job. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it one more shot. And so that fear of me coming home and getting a 9-to-5 or a regular job put a little more animosity into my soul. And then another teammate came, and that became easier. But transitioning from Italy for 4 years, I learned the language. I went to Germany for 2 years. I went to Belgium for 2 years, played in Russia for a year, went to the Philippines, went to Israel. I traveled the world. If you take 90% of the NBA guys, this might be 15% of them that have ever done what I've done, I guarantee you they don't have my stories and experiences because they've never lived in those countries. They may go for a week or two, but they've never witnessed the culture, talked to the people, drove around, did witness the history. So that really opened my eyes to a different aspect of who I was.
You know, one thing I tell a lot of young players that we send overseas or they're about to go overseas, brainwash yourself with what you know, because and start thinking of what can I learn. Because when you are willing to learn and step into the culture, it makes it easier for you to kind of adjust and live in that place. And it sounds like, it's an adjustment for you. It's different. When you're in the locker room with your teammates and you're in college, everything's cool. You got a party to go through. But when you become a pro, you got 2 practices. You got to lift. You got to go get a massage. You got to go get an ice bath. All this stuff has to happen, and it don't happen every other day. It's like every single day. But you get through it, you stick it out, eventually you get married. Now that's a whole different element of adjustment, because now it's not just you. You do have somebody who's here full time, but it's not that you just have a full time. Now you have to take care of. This is your wife. Talk me through that. How does that work for you now that you come into that space where it's not just me, it's us? And what type of different pressure? Maybe it was more pressure on that than it was on the basketball court.
And so my wife was very supportive. She was a coach's daughter, so she understood the mindset and focus that I had to have as a professional. But my first year, she was still here going through grad school. So my second year, it was about introducing her to whatever city I was in. And, you know, Verona, my first year, was the stage for Romeo and Juliet. So I had a perfect setting for her. And then the next 2 years, I went all the way to southern Italy in Calabria by the toe of the boot near Messina. And so we embraced the culture. We embraced the families that came to the gym. A lot of the fans loved sitting near my wife because they wanted to learn English, and my wife wanted to learn Italian. It all was great and easy flowing for me because I had a wife who'd been around basketball for a long time. But to your statement, I had a family 4 years later and 2 babies. So when my 2 babies were born, me and my wife, like really boldly, flew all the way to Lithuania in Russia, and literally we're in Lithuania with 2 infants. And so we get there, and I go to practice the first day, and we stay in like a little hotel, like dormitory thing, but it's nice. And so I go to practice the first day, and my coach says, Titus, go home, pack your bags. We're going to Spain for 2 weeks. I said, oh, Coach, I just got here. My wife in the hotel right now, and it's 30 below outside. You want me to leave her here for 2 weeks? He's like, if you want this check, you're going to get on that plane. So that's when it became real to me, because I had to go back to the hotel and be like, hey, baby, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I'll be gone for 2 weeks. You got to take care of the 2 babies on your own, and I'll be in sunny Spain. And she's like, are you dead serious? And so I'm sitting here like, all right, this has to turn into something different. I got to look after my wife. So a little while after that, we hired a nanny. I was fortunate enough to hire someone to come help out my wife and really take care of everybody in the household. But it does change your mindset, because you're in a place where the groceries don't look the same. The chicken still have feathers on it. You know, you go to the daggone meat department, everything got faces and lips on it. And you're like, it don't look like what we have here. So you got to really do yourself justice and learn about the culture, learn about the city, navigate yourself, and learn some things. Don't just sit up there and play video games.
Talk me through it, though. That one piece. You come home, you tell your wife, it becomes real. How much more pressure does it really put on your shoulders then? Because you're a new father, and fatherhood's important to you. Your parents were pivotal in your life. How much more pressure does it put on you on the court or off the court now, knowing that each job you choose, you have to think about what happens with them?
So my family came with me everywhere pretty much after they were born. And so my oldest 3 have lived in Germany, Belgium, and Israel. And so having kids in any foreign country is a challenge, but making sure they're educated is even more impressive, because we didn't just want our kids just to be out there having fun. We wanted them to experience things. So one country that we were in Israel, you know, we were terrible. And so coaches were sitting in the locker room like, listen, if we don't win this game, all of y'all are getting fired. And I'm sitting there like, so you gonna send me and my 2 kids and me and my wife, you gonna send us home? So it gets real serious when that experience hits you, knowing that the next check is not guaranteed unless you start winning. And so I remember playing in that tournament. It was like, it wasn't the playoffs, it was like the playouts. So if you lost, your team would drop. I remember sitting in the locker room, and we had to stay in the locker room because the fans were outside. Like, listen, if y'all drop us, y'all might not make it to the airport to get on that plane to go home, because they were pissed. And like, I'm dead serious. These people were pissed. Like, would literally come to your apartment, throw rocks at your car, come to your apartment, tell you how bad you've been playing. And then you like, hold it, they put my family in danger too. So, those experiences I got to share with my young people. It's life and death for some of the fans over there. You don't get the same fans you get here. Everybody singing, jumping. They don't sit down. I don't even know why they put seats in the stadiums over there, because don't nobody sit down. Everybody swaying and dancing. It's a party. And so doing what they do over there and having that type of impact on people really does touch you, but it gives you that psychological edge like, dang, I might not get this next check. Or next season, I got to work 10 times harder because the check ain't going to be good enough because they don't want no terrible American. And so having your family does give you a push, a nudge, but it does put a little, in hindsight, like, all right, like what, we have to get this thing together because they got to eat. I'm going to be all right, but they got to eat.
It's funny you mentioned that, man. I remember we were playing a Euro Cup game, and where were we? I think we was at Aris in Greece. And, man, I stole the ball from one of their best players. I can't remember the American. Went down, got an and one, and won the game. They literally quarantined me in the locker room and our team for an hour and 25 minutes. They was like, you cannot leave here. They will kill you. And we like, okay, we just sitting out in there. No, you can't leave the locker room. They like bought us sandwiches and everything. And for me, that was the moment where it was like, this is real. Like, people will die. Like, I'm saying, we running off the court, they throwing Euro coins.
Oh.
And they telling us like, do not pick up the coins because that will infuriate them even more. Because, I'm walking on like, okay, I'll get a couple of drinks with this. And pelting it down. But for me, I didn't have a family. I had a daughter. So, I'm like, my daughter's not mom. She'd be okay. But it really hit me then that, this is people's lives. They come to these games, and this is their life for the week. And if you don't show up, we got a problem.
Yeah, it happened to me too. I was in Italy, and I think we had just won in like Ferrara, and our coach was like, listen, he called a timeout with like 2 seconds. He was like, listen, we're going to take the ball out, and as soon as that horn goes off, you get to the tunnel and you run to the locker room. Don't cheer, don't jump, get your tail to the locker room. So I think the horn went off, and I'm like, yeah. And like you said, a Euro hit me in the head. Like, Ty, I told you, you better get to the locker room. I'm talking about cigarette lighters, everything, screws, everything were flying on the day on court.
And nobody really tells you about this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember our first championship, and we win on the other team's home court. And I was defensive player of the year. So, you get an award. Coach grabs me like, go. I'm like, bro, what are you touching me for? Bam. I see a rock go right next to him. I'm like, bro, you don't have to tell me anymore. And you're like, bro, you can't even enjoy it. But that's how serious that people take it. And it's a beautiful thing because it allows you to see sometimes, even though you play the game, it's so much bigger than you. Like some of these people live for you. And then, you get the good times. But talk me through it. About my boring experiences. Talk me through it. You're starting to end your career. Do you start looking for what's next? Or are you like most of the athletes who are clinging on to that last, not even check or experience? When do you start saying, okay, what's next for me? How do I evolve from this?
Yeah, I won a German championship. I also won 2 Belgian championships, and these are national championships. And so in Israel, I had just come off an injury with my knee. And so that year being so bad and me coming from an injury, the next year was just up in the air. My agent was good enough to get me a job in the Philippines. So I flew all the way to the Philippines, tried out for a team. And the thing about the Philippines, a lot of them aren't very tall. So I was basically a center at 6'4" that could bring the ball up, run the point and play defense on some of the 6'9" kids that they did bring over. So, I ended up getting hurt in a scrimmage game. Shouldn't even been in the game. And they wanted to see me play. And I just a routine crossover that I made against some terrible player, and I
You
turned my
call the
ankle.
ball. It's okay.
Exactly, total bump. And I'm sitting here and I turned my ankle, and as an athlete, I sprained my ankle probably 400 times. And I could ice it and bounce back somewhat better, somewhat the next day and be like, all right, I'll be all right in a day or two. It didn't come back. And so with it not coming back, I remember that night I stayed up 24 hours, Sully, 24 hours, icing on and off for 30 minutes, on and off, 30 minutes, trying to get my ankle to respond and kick back, and it never responded. So they sent me home. I came home, got a doctor to look at my ankle. He said, listen, you're going to need some surgery. You tore some ligaments in your ankle. I was like, God almighty. That would have been my fourth surgery. Didn't want to go through a surgery. And so I was like, listen, I'll let it rest. I'll see if I can come back in a year. At the same time, it never responded. So when I told my wife, I was like, I think that's it. I don't think I can go back. I got to get a job. What does that job look like? Where do we go from here? Where do we move? The income that we're going to be bringing in is not going to be what that would brought us to. So I'm glad we did save, but at the same time, we got to change up our lifestyle. And so it was difficult. It was difficult because we had a nice home on the lake. We had a nice vehicle. And I'm like, oh, we got to sell the house. We got to move into something smaller. We got to make some change, move closer to the city. And so life hits you and you become a working adult, and you definitely got to be prayerful because it ain't the same. And so now I got a family of five because I got 3 kids, and, I got to feed them, got to take care of the mortgage, got to do some other things, and it just becomes a grind. And that's what I'm doing now, just grinding it out.
So before I let you go, Ty, your story is a phenomenal story because you've had bumps in the road, you've had surgeries, but you've always managed to bounce back. If there's any piece of advice you can give to an athlete or a coach or an AD in regards to what sports has taught you or what sports has allowed you to understand or grow into, what would that be?
Have a foundation and put God in that foundation. Allow him to work in your life. And I know that, as a Christian, I've always been a Christian, but it didn't really hit me until, I was in college and grinding after my father passed away, and a lot of other things were going on. And so being foundational in the book and having a testimony to share with other people is what I do and how I navigate. But at the same time, all of those trials and tribulations, if he didn't put more on you, then you wouldn't be tougher on the other end. And so, dealing what I deal with every day. My daughter right now is about to be cancer-free in 3 days. My brother hit a tree, had half his head stapled in. He's running marathons now. My mom had a heart attack. Things happen. But my foundation, that foundation has helped me persevere through everything. And so being sound mind and body, living the way I do, trying to do it the right way, not using. And people are like, why don't you cuss, Coach? I don't deal with that anymore. I used to back in the day. That's just not what I do now. But living the right way, having a foundation with the Lord has really helped blossom me into who I am today and what I'm achieving today.
That's real, man. I love it. It's almost that evolution. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Either you evolve or you cease to exist. And unfortunately, with sports, it don't matter how much you evolve. There's a timer that's gonna go off and you can't play anymore. But we'd like to thank you for coming on, man. I truly appreciate it. You jumping on and giving us your story, showing us a different angle of success. Because some people we've had on here haven't had the illustrious careers like yours. But to have you come on and share, man, I know a couple of my dudes just hit me. It was like, oh, he's a cool dude. I missed a little bit, so I'm going to send it over to him. We just want to thank you, man. We appreciate you
No,
sharing your story. And most importantly, thanks for the transparency. Because a lot of people don't say these things. You could be in the country and, you know what I mean, they could tell you, listen, you guys score 30 points tomorrow and you're going home. And they don't know that. They think that you got a contract. And they're like,
no.
no, this is what I need you to do tomorrow. But we appreciate your transparency, and we really appreciate you sharing your story of success.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you. And like I said, I love the work that your organization is doing. And anytime you need me, I'm here.
My man. All right, we about to get out of here tight. Love you, man. Be safe.
Love you too.
All right, thank you.